Hello everyone, my name is Velikan. In this video I will be talking about the areas that you can go to in Leagues 4 in combination with the relics that you can pick, specifically the combat relics. So what we're going to try and do in this video is we're going to try and find synergies between relics and areas. I'm going to present some paths to you that you can take. This is not a guide for leagues. I will not be telling you that you can get a rune axe from tree spirits. I won't be telling you that you should, I don't know, rush stronghold for 10k, stuff like that. We're not going to be doing that at all. I'm not going to be explaining why you should play Leagues 4. And I'm not going to be talking about the rewards either. The most important thing that you should know about this video is we are practically ignoring the wilderness as an area. If you're a PK or you want to run around in the wilderness, I guess it's still worth it to watch this video because I do present some free area picks, some free picks, but generally I don't really consider the wilderness at all. So, I made a PowerPoint presentation. I've got a much longer one talking about all the Leagues 2 relics, but I figured that because they're going to change those, it's going to be a waste of time anyway. So I made a 90-minute video, a 60-minute video, and this video, I don't know, I'm going to try and keep it within 20 minutes, okay? So what do we need to know about Leagues 4 as of right now? There are going to be many changes to the relics. So talking about the relics, I don't think makes any sense. What we also know is after Leagues 2, there's going to be, there has been a lot of new content. So Thralls, Hard Mode TOB, Combat Achievements, Guardians of the Rift, yada yada yada, Next, Tombs, Wildy Bosses, Muspa, DT2. So one small point of note I do want to make about the Combat Achievements. I initially classed Combat Achievements as quite interesting, but after review I think Combat Achievements are going to be worthless. First of all, I do believe that you need Asgarnia in order to claim your rewards, and not only that, because you don't have access to because you don't have access to all the bosses in the game, it will be impossible to get the Grandmaster. It will probably be impossible to get Master and Elite too. So you're going to get a couple of more cannonballs in your cannon, a God Wars Dungeon teleport, which will probably be rendered useless through Last Recall. You get some more pest control points. I think that will be useless as well. If you want to go pest control, you have to do it early in the leagues because I don't think a lot of people will be doing pest control late into the leagues. So you don't really have the time to grind out all the combat achievements and then go do pest control. I would advise against that. If you have pest control in one of your areas, do it at an early level, like in the first 2 weeks. No Barrow's Prayer Drain. I don't think that's worth anything. Half NMZ points cost isn't worth much either. In Leagues 2, NMZ was disabled and you had to buy points for 1 GP per point. Generally, I would say CA rewards are quite weak, so I wouldn't consider them whatsoever when creating a route. So Leagues Tier 3 relics. Leagues 2 Tier 3 relics were about your combat enhancement relics. So the attack speed of either ranged, melee, or magic was halved, which was probably the most important thing about either of these relics. As you can see on the right, the Fluid Strikes relic, the melee one, was the most popular, and for good reason. I don't know if it's the strongest, but it was the most popular. Like, melee in general in the main game is the most popular style anyway. So, what do you have to know about the Tier 3 relics? I think that the Tier 3 relics are a safe bet that they will return in almost the exact same fashion in Leagues 4. Why do I think this? Because Leagues 1 and Leagues 3 also had these same relics. If you... so this is basically what the video is going to be about. The choice on your Tier 3 relic ties heavily into your area choices. There's a couple of things you do need to know. I think the 100% accuracy increase for your ranged relic is going to be insane because of Blowpipe. Blowpipe got nerfed. It's not as accurate. 100% increase for accuracy is going to be great. 90% of rune saved is very strong as well, especially early game. When you want to teleport somewhere, you get like 10 law runes and you've practically got 100. Okay, Ammo save, another interesting part of the quick shots relic. Getting a backpack might be a challenge in leagues, because for the assembler you have to unlock Vorkath, which is in the Fremmy area, and the accumulator, if you just want to do the quest, you're gonna have to be in Morytania for some chickens. So if you don't unlock Morytania or Fremmy and you don't have quick shots, you might run into an issue with ammo, and I think getting 99 ranged will be quite annoying. It won't be impossible. You'll probably use knives or something like that, maybe even chins. Basically, you're just going to get 99 ranged and then not think about ranged at all for the rest of the league if you don't do quick shot. The 125% increase for accuracy for magic is not that insane, I would argue. It is necessary. Otherwise, you'll be splashing on a lot of bosses. If you bring like a Trident and Arims to Bandos, you will be splashing in the main game. That's why you need the accuracy. The 100% freeze rate is pretty good. However, I don't think when you're in the late game, you will be freezing a lot. Not to mention, I think the magic route is going to skip the God Wars dungeon bosses. And then you really have to think about, okay, the content I am going to do I really need a freeze to begin with? So keep that in mind. Then you've got the tier 6 relics. I'm pretty sure they will come back in some form. I'm going to be talking about this briefly. So Draining Strikes seems very strong. It was quite popular too. Over half of the player base went for Draining Strikes. But the moment you realize that Bandos, for instance, has 255 HP, if you divide that by 50% and then 10%, you're going to get 13 HP and prayer back for one Bandos kill. That is one lobster, so that's not a lot. With Vorkath, for instance, 750 health, it returns 38 HP. Draining Strikes does. So for bossing, I would say Draining Strikes is not that good. It might be better in raids, because in raids the enemies have much more HP and your inventory is limited. You cannot last recall in a raid. So for raids it might be a lot better. And Draining Strikes is really good when you're doing Slayer. So AFK Slayer, Infinite, Protect Prayers, that's pretty damn good. Exploding Attacks, it's exceptionally niche. If you really want to go exploding attacks, look up some videos about the Trailblazer League, people using exploding attacks, and maybe you can figure something out. Keep in mind that it needs multi-combat. So Weapon Specialist was the pick, even though it wasn't the most popular one. It's the strongest. It's not AFK, I recognize that. It also needs a weapon like BGS, SGS. You can swap out the BGS for a Dragon Warhammer now, because Kourend is available in Leagues IV. But with an SGS, you probably heal more than Draining Strikes. And also, if the boss is last recallable, let's take Bandos for example. If you're going to grind out 300, 400 Bandos kills, you're just going to last recall in, you're going to spec him 5 times with your BGS, and then you kill him. Simple. And you probably don't even need to heal. You probably don't even need food at this point. You're going to be killing him so fast that Draining Strikes basically becomes worthless. Keep in mind, though, that if you are going to go quick shots or the magic relic, I can't remember its name, Fluid Casts, I think, Weapon Specialist becomes a lot weaker. Especially with magic, you don't have to drain the enemy defenses as much, and then Draining Strikes might become a more interesting pick. So keep that in mind. As for areas, most popular combination was Kandarin Asgarnia Morytania. Why? Because all the content was there, and it had incredible synergy with each other. Kandarin Asgarnia makes up for Piety, and then Morytania, that's where Tbow was. Lots of people were going to try Tbow in Leagues 2. So if you want to go the melee relic, keep in mind the whip is available in Mistlin. This goes for any route, actually. Then Piety, that's something you have to realize. It requires both Asgarnia and Kandarin. Okay? So that's really good to know. You cannot get Piety if you don't go these two areas. So Asgarnia is a exceptional pick for melees. You get Defenders, Bandos Gear, BGS, Torva, and Prims. That's insane. or have all of that in one area, most people that are going to get melee are going to go Asgarnia. It's arguably mandatory. So why would you pick Kandarin? Is it just for piety? Not really. You get Zenites and you get a early D-skim. If you pick Kandarin, you get Monkey Madness 2 auto-completed, which means you can just spend 100k on a D-skim, and that's your weapon until a whip. So that's why people go Kandarin Asgarnia. And then, of course, the combination gives piety. Lots of people used to go Morytania. The Slayer helmet is in Mori. And also the Scythe, the Inquisitor, the Rapier, Avernic, Blood Fury, stuff like that. You could skip Asgarnia and think about going Morytania, and then you're gonna like leap towards Inquisitor plus a Scythe. And if you're wearing a Scythe, you don't have to have a defender, and then basically you basically take away 2 areas and just pick Morytania. And then the only thing you're truly missing is Piety and a Bandos God Sword. I think that is a little bit of a self-grief, but it is a possibility. So, if you don't want to go Morytania, there's multiple reasons why you wouldn't go Morytania, and we will talk about this in a second. There's Tirannwn for the Seldor Blade and Kourend for the Dragon Warhammer, and the DHL if you have Asgarnia, and there's also D-Claws. Although I think D-Claws is not that strong, you are able to spec 5 times with it if you go Weapon Specialist. The only reason why you would go Kourend is for the Dragon Warhammer, and then I don't really know. There's not much else in Kourend, so I wouldn't go there if I were you. A valid route alternative is Asgarnia Kandarin Desert, because it gives you a Fang, and the Fang is probably exceptionally strong. Keep in mind that if you... we'll be talking about this a little bit more in a second, but the Ancient Rings are not just in the desert. You need Fremmy, and you need the area where your ring drops too. And the Soul Reaper Axe is unobtainable. Like, not available at all. Okay, so for melee route, you can pick Kandarin first for the free D-Skim. Then your options are basically Asgarnia and then Morytania or Desert. I think those 2 will be the 2 best routes. You could forego the Morytania or the Desert pick, and then you have a free pick. You could go Tirannwn for Seldor, Wilderness for Voidwaker. It's your choice. One alternative route could be, it's in blue, the Morytania Kourend plus free pick. You would need Kourend for the Dragon Warhammer, which is going to be a grind, don't forget. And then you'll be running around in full barrows. You can spec 5 Dragon Warhammers, and then you really want to get a Scythe. Keep in mind, though, Morytania is quite a area. You probably want some friends. You're going to have to grind TOB. It's not going to be fun. Also, you're going to be grinding out barrows, and you're going to be doing it without quick casts. So, I mean, you can still melee them, but you don't have a D-Skim this way. So, if you go to blue route, it's, I don't know. It's an alternative route, so to speak. So, about the desert, lots of people are talking about the desert. It's going to be great because of Tbow. However, keep in mind that like in Leagues 2, a lot of the desert tasks were about KQ and Mage Training Area. Especially MTA, it fucking sucks with Relics. With or without Relics, it just flat out sucks. So, if you unlock the desert, you might be hurting for points. Keep that in mind, please. The desert might be a trap, especially if you unlock it as a first area. That might be a huge mistake. Tbow is probably going to make up for a lot of points. However, if you're considering going desert, pick it as the last area, I would argue. Okay, so for ranged. Ranged is interesting. Asgarnia gives Arma, ACB, ZCB, and Z-Vamps. It is an exceptional area, Asgarnia. Kandarin gives Zenites and the Heavy Ballista. I will talk about the Heavy Ballista in a second. Desert gives Masori, and if you have Asgarnia Desert, you can fortify your Masori. Fremmy gives Archer Rings. I think that is very weak. You already have the bonus accuracy from your relic. I don't think you would need a ring. Morytania gives Barrows. It's okay, but I think you can just get Arma without Barrows. So I don't think you would need Morytania at all. Tirannwn gives the blowpipe, and the blowpipe is a god weapon. However, you cannot get a lot of darts without the desert. So Tirannwn Desert is the combination, the one combination. Then Tirannwn also gives Bofa and Crystal. If you really like CG, you can grind it out. However, even with the increased drop rate, grinding out a full Bofa and a Crystal in temporary game mode is not that fun. So keep that in mind, please. Then you've got Kourend. It gives a Tbow and it gives Rigour. I don't think Tbow is going to be that strong. Rigour is where it's at. Also, Tbow, it's going to be quite a grind still. Keep that in mind, please. And then one thing of note, the Webweaver bow is a pretty interesting spec weapon, I think. And if you just want to have fun, you might want to go there, but you're going to have to pick the wieldy. So about darts. I've made a small list of what NPCs do drop darts. The only valid resource of darts is Chaos Elemental with the Mithril darts. It drops 300. Other than that, I say all of these dart drops are going to suck. Conclusion, if you want to go Tirannwn for the blowpipe, you have to pick Desert. You have to pick Desert for darts, because Desert unlocks Tourist Trap, and then with Tourist Trap you can just smith them. Do not make that mistake. So, Tirannwn plus Desert, and then you can go Asgarnia. I think that's probably the best route. It's in green. Blowpipe, Bofa, Fortified Masori, ZCB, ZFAMs, and Pegations even, but good luck with those. Asgarnia will also give you the BGS for Weapon Specialist if you intend to go that route. It will still be very strong. I think Weapon Specialist will be not as necessary as it would be with a melee build, but it's still going to be very strong. If Weapon Specialist is available, it will be very strong, even with ranged. Then you can go Tirannwn Desert and just a free pick. Kandarin would offer Zenite gear. Morytania only gives Barrows, so I don't really know outside of Kandarin. Maybe Kourend for a Tbow. However, your Tbow might make at least your Bofa obsolete, I would argue. Keep in mind that if you omit Asgarnia, it will weaken your armor, but I don't think that will be that big of an issue. Having regular Masori is probably going to be just fine. As an alternative, you could go Kourend, Desert, Asgarnia. It's a valid route. You get Tbow, Rigour, Fortified Masori, ZCB, ZVamps, and Pegations. You should just forget about the Pegations. Keep in mind, though, the Tbow, it's like a pipe dream ultimate goal weapon, and I don't think it will be as strong as people think. It will be very strong. I'm not saying that. And also, keep in mind that grinding out a Tbow is still a significant effort. If it's a 1 in 1,000 drop in the main game, I think it's somewhere around that. If you have, if it's in leagues, it should be what? Divided by 3, so it's a 1 in 333. You can still go 600 KC dry and not get a Tbow. So keep that in mind. Desert Asgarnia Free is arguably valid. It gives you a Bellator ring and a Venator bow. However, your main weapon will be ACB, ZCB, and that's a crossbow. It's not really flashy. It's not weak. Don't make that mistake. It's not weak by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just not flashy. The blowpipe is going to be the flashy god weapon. It's going to be great. If you don't know, the blowpipe will be a one-tick weapon, and it's going to shred everything. Then there's the Kandarin route. This is an ultimate snowflake route. It gives Zenites, but also opens up the heavy ballista. Basically, the ballista drops from demonic gorillas. It requires Monkey Madness 2, access to Apatol, Tirannwn Village, yada yada yada. It's all within Kandarin. So Kandarin basically opens up the entire heavy ballista. So Dragon Javelins are dropped by Desert Treasure 2 bosses. That would need the addition of just Desert. It says Desert plus Fremenic, but just Desert will give you Leviathan because Leviathan is in Misthalin. I think that's not something you should be banking on. However, Rune Javelins that you can be bought from the Raging Guild, and they are probably strong enough. I think the Javelins will work with the ranged relic ammunition save. I'm struggling with my words right now. Keep in mind, though, that javelins don't work with a assembler. So if you want to go the heavy ballista thing, you're going to need quick shots. Also, quick shots, it makes heavy ballista from a 7-tick weapon to a 3-tick. If you opt for the heavy ballista as your primary weapon, all you need is armor. Morytania for Carols, Desert for Masori, Asgarnia for Arma. You can go anywhere. Just keep in mind that if you pick an area such as Tirannwn, you also get access to a Bofa, and if you have access to a Bofa, is the heavy ballista still your main weapon? I don't know. If you want to do this, you can go Kandarin Mori, Kandarin Asgarnia, or Kandarin Desert, and you get 1 free pick. So the range route, if you want to craft your own range route, you have to decide on a weapon, then you have to decide on armor, and if you have picked both a weapon and armor, you have 2 areas jotted down, and then you only have to pick your final area. Just pick whatever uniques you still like, or whatever combination you get to unlock. So let's say you have Ballista and Masori, so that's Kandarin and Desert. You can add Asgarnia for fortifying your Masori and maybe adding a ZCB, something like that. The magic route. The end. People are going to be talking about Tumakin. Even though Tumakin is exceptionally good, it's not the only weapon when you go the magic route. It's interesting, this route, because it skips God Wars dungeons. There is no reason to go to God Wars dungeons if you are a magic user. I think the most interesting zones are Desert for not only Tumakin, but also Ancients. And Kandarin for Trident, Ibans, Zenites. And what this sheet doesn't tell you, there is the Occult and the Tormented Bracelets in there. If you go Kandarin, which I think is mandatory for a magic route, Occult and the Tormented Bracelet are the 2 biggest DPS upgrades that you can get. So Kandarin, I would argue, is mandatory. Previously, Morytania was a must because Arims was best in slot. Now, with Desert, Virtus is an option, and Virtus is a very good armor set. If you go if you go Desert, you unlock Leviathan. Leviathan is the only boss that's available in the areas you have unlocked already, because it's in Mistlin. Fremmy would give you Magus Ring, but I don't know if that's worth it. Tirannwn would give you Trident of the Swamps. That was okay in Leagues, but it's the only thing for magic users in Tirannwn. I don't think it's that strong. Kourend gives Ancestral, which is interesting, and Morytania gives Arims, but not only Arims, it gives Sangstaff and Nightmare Staves as well. Consider this. Without Morytania, Weapon Specialist is going to be weak. You don't have a BGS or a Dragon Warhammer. You don't really need those 2 items because you're a magic user, and your spec weapons are now basically only used to recover HP and prayer, and for that you would need one of the Nightmare Staves. If you go a magic route, I would argue against taking Weapon Specialist as your tier 6 relic. Just get Draining Strikes, I would say. Then, Kandarin gives Occult Occult plus Bracelet. These are the 2 best upgrades, period. So it's very strongly recommended in your route. And then the same thing basically happens. You have to pick a weapon and armor. However, if you just take a look at the Desert for a second, even though Tumakin, it will be the strongest weapon in the game, Tumakin will also be the strongest with Ancestral. And if you have a Tumakin plus Ancestral, then you probably don't need Virtus anymore. However, there's this thing in Leagues called a progression path, and you will not be running around with Tumakins in the first week. Some people might take this as a challenge. Go for it. Desert plus Kandarin plus Kourend is probably the best route. You get everything, basically, in this route. Tumakin, Ancients, Kodai, Tormented Bracelet, Occult, Trident, Ancestral, Augury. And even though Kodai, for instance, it will become obsolete, Virtus will become obsolete unless you find an activity that requires you to use Ancients. The only thing that I can think of is barraging things in the Kourend Catacombs. But if you are barraging them with Ancestral, you'll be fine. like Virtus is a minor upgrade there. This route has some waste to it, but you can also argue that this quote-unquote waste is just your progression path. One thing that hasn't been said about this route is it has both tombs and chambers, and those are going to be hellish grinds, I think. If you want to get everything, if you want to get Ancestral, Tirannwn, Virtus, all of that stuff, you're going to be grinding a lot. So Desert Kandarin and a free pick is also an option. Completely, if you want to go a completely alternative route, you can go Morytania Kandarin free pick. It gives you Arim's Sang Nightmare. Very strong still. I think even though the Tirannwn is going to be a god tier weapon, the Nightmare Staff is going to do very well for you, probably. Then you could pick, as your free pick, you have Kourend for Ancestrals and Augury, Desert for Tirannwn, we talked about this, and then Tirannwn for the Swamp Staff. I think that is a mistake, going Tirannwn. It's very easy to get, the Swamp Staff, but it's the only thing that's in Tirannwn, so I wouldn't do that. So, about Morytania. Morytania is going to be a tough area. It might be a trap for a lot of people, especially if you are a solo player. If you're alone, if you don't have friends, if you don't have a clan, like myself, you might have some issues finding TOB groups. I don't know how viable soloing TOB is in leagues. I know it's possible. I know it's also possible in the main game, but it's not viable at all. So that might be a mistake because a lot of the gear in Morytania is locked behind TOB. If you think that you want to be running around with Arims and a Sang Staff, you might have to grind out a lot of TOB KC, maybe over 100, and then it will be an insane area if you have a group ready. If you decide with your friends that you all want to go Mori and do TOB, then you're going to have huge amounts of fun. You're going to be set. You're going to have fun. If you're solo, it might be a lot tougher. So keep that in mind, please. So, summary for Magic. Kandarin is a must pick. Not picking Kandarin is a grief. So from here you have to decide on a weapon, Swamp Staff, Tirannwn, Nightmare Stave, Sang Staff, and just pick that area. The desert is extremely strong because it puts you in tombs, and it also gives you Virtus gear. It gives you Ancients. I think early Ancients is going to be quite strong. Being able to just barrage everything. You're going to have 90% rune saving. It's going to be great, I'm pretty sure. You can forgo Ancestral plus Augury and opt for the Magus Ring with Fremmy. I don't think it's very strong, but it is an option. So about the DT2 rings, what you need to know is you need Fremmy for the base rings, and then you need the Desert for Desert Treasure 2, and you have to know that the 4 bosses are in 4 different areas. Kourend, Asgarnia, Fremmy, and Mistlin. The Ultor ring, that's the melee one, needs Desert, Kourend, and Fremmy, and that's not a valid combination for melee builds, I would say. You have no armor, you don't really have a weapon either. Well, you get a Fang, but you don't get a defender. Long story short, Ultor ring, I don't think it's valid. I wouldn't go Desert, Kourend, Fremmy just for the ring, basically. Magus Ring is pretty good. Since Kandarin is arguably a must, you're going to end up with Kandarin Desert Fremmy. That's a pretty good combination of areas. It's going to be taking away Kourend. It will be taking away Ancestral and Augury. But it will give you a Magus Ring. And I don't think it's that bad of an idea to go that route. Bellator Ring, Desert Asgarnia Free. It gives Fortified Masori, ZCB, a Venator Bow, but also then the Bellator ring. It will be strong, but your main weapon is going to be a crossbow or the Venator bow. It's not going to be bad. All I'm saying is I wouldn't do this route specifically just for the ring. That's basically what I'm trying to say with all of these routes. Keep in mind that the Soul Reaper axe is unavailable. Why? Because you need 4 areas. Outside of Mistlin, you need Fremmy, Asgarnia, Kourend, and Desert. So it's impossible, basically, to get all the bosses. So how do you decide on areas? You need to decide if you're going to be playing for points or for maybe a Dragon Cup. You have to pick areas that have good task and point distribution. This was very significant in leagues because, for example, the desert was a very weak area. It only had like 8,000 points, while other areas had like 11,000 points. We cannot decide on an area if you're playing for points, not yet. You have to wait until the task list is on the wiki. If you're playing for fun or just for learning some certain PVM activities, you are basically locked to an area already. If you want to learn tombs or theater or chambers, you're in either the desert, Morytania, or Kourend respectively. So this will lock down at least one area for you. Then you might also have to decide your tier 3 relic. So if you want to learn Inferno, it might be an idea to not get the melee relic. But maybe you do want to get the melee relic because you want to learn the Inferno legitimately. It's all up to you, but keep in mind that your tier 3 relic also ties into whatever you want to learn. And also, lastly, for instance, with the mage relic, it will be possible to mage Inferno. So keep that in mind. One last thing, there's an unknown 7th relic coming for Leagues 4. It's probably going to be a combat relic, but no one knows what it is, not yet. So we're going to have to wait. I don't think it will change the area picking that much, but it might make some of this guide's content obsolete. I see some people saying like, oh, I'm going to go and rush Corrupted Gauntlet. Please don't. You're going to end up in Tirannwn, and you are too low level for Corrupted Gauntlet, and then you will be, I don't know, woodcutting teaks and mahoganies. And maybe, I don't know, doing construction, because that's what you do in Tirannwn at a low level. So do not rush high-level areas. That's a mistake that you can make. The desert is also potentially a trap area. If you are like level 30 or 40, you get to unlock your second area. If you go desert, you will not be able to do tombs because you're too low of a combat level. And then you are stuck doing mage training area and thieving skirk juices for points. That will suck, let me tell you. So how do you decide on relics? I initially made a very long video. It was 3 times as long as this one. This one is going to be about 35 minutes, I think. I'm talking about all the relics. But I decided ultimately not to upload that because there's no point in deciding on the relics because you don't know what the 7th relic is going to be. They will be changing the relics. At least that's what we think. They're going to be not copying the Leagues 2 relics one-on-one. If they are, then we have a lot to talk about. But we don't know if they are going to do that. I will probably upload a second video about this once the Leagues 4 relics are set in stone and uploaded on the wiki. One thing of note, if you are susceptible to disappointment and regret, like I am, you have to create a plan. That's why I'm making these types of videos. If you are not, just completely wing it. If you are, though, don't half-ass your plan. Think about everything. Don't make any assumptions. Double-check everything. For instance, it took me a little while to understand that if I wanted a Desert Treasure 2 ring, you have to unlock, for instance, Fremmy Desert and then the area that your boss is in. That's something I didn't really realize until I was creating this video. Also, popular players will probably publish some guides. Zulu, Wooks, I think Foe has done this. They will probably do this for Leagues 4, most likely. So what am I going to do? I'm not sure because there is no point in deciding. It's that simple. I do have an idea. I'm quite the snowflake, so I am considering a magic route. This time around, though, I think magic will be a lot more picked because of Tombkin. I think people are going to be staring themselves blind on tombs. That said, it's probably not going to be melee. I cannot be asked doing God Wars Dungeons, so it's probably going to be magic. My goals for these leagues are learning solo chambers and Inferno. And for chambers, I need Kourend, so I'm going to probably be building and picking my relics around this Kourend pick. So for the near future, as far as YouTube goes, if Jagex decides on changing these combat relics, this guide becomes probably obsolete. If people are talking about a 6th area unlock, then you can just delete this video from YouTube. It's that simple. If there's a 6th area unlock, everything goes out the window. Almost everything. Anyway, I've been talking about this stuff for far too long. I will be uploading another video. It will probably be a long one when the relics are available. If we know what relics there are, I will be talking about the synergies between these relics. Maybe even, what's the opposite of synergy? Like the antagonistic thing between relics. If 2 relics work against each other, I will be trying to figure that out before the league starts, and then uploading a video about everything. And then I will be picking a path. So that's what we're gonna do. Very long video. I'll probably be you're probably bored to death now. If you've watched the entire thing, thank you, thanks a lot, and I will see you next time. I'm just tuning out. Otherwise, this is going to go on for another couple of minutes, which is unnecessary. Bye bye.